Welcome everybody to the 9th installment of Seeds of Change. My name is Jim Carrington. I'm president of the Danforth Plant Science Center, and it's my distinct honor to welcome everybody here. It's terrific to see a good turnout. Each year, Seeds of Change brings to the Danforth Center a visionary, a thought leader, a doer, and an influencer, all wrapped up into one person. Seeds of Change is about thinking differently. It's about thinking creatively and beyond our comfort zones. This evening's guest is a shining example of the power of one person raising her voice, using her voice, standing up for what is right, and refusing to back down despite overwhelming odds and opposition. Seeds of Change is sponsored by the Danforth Leadership Council, a group of talented, dedicated thought leaders here in St. Louis. The Danforth Leadership Council, chaired by Chip Lerwick, is an organization that helps us, the Danforth Center, connect with the community. It helps us get our message out and helps enlist supporters, which is so important to our mission to improve the human condition through plant science. I want to take this opportunity to thank each member of the DLC for all of your work, especially for the work that's gone into pulling this event together. Our moderator this evening is Natalie DiNicola. Natalie is vice chairman of the DLC and a familiar presence on this stage. Natalie, thank you so much for your service this evening. Natalie is a leader in agricultural innovation here in this community, and please join me in welcoming Natalie to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carrington, and all of the Danforth team. And thanks all of you for being here tonight. It's a real great honor and privilege for me to introduce our 2018 Seeds of Change presenter, a dear friend and great mentor, Ruth Oniang'o. Ruth is a professor of food and nutritional sciences, received her degrees in Washington State University and the University of Nairobi, Kenya. She founded and is editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Food, Agriculture, Nutrition, and Development, one of the premier scientific journals on the continent. And she is the founder and director of Rural Outreach Africa, an NGO that is working to address rural poverty, food and nutrition security. She chairs boards for the Sasakawa Africa Association, having taken over from late Nobel laureate Dr. Norman Borlaug. And she serves as an advisor for many different organizations, UN agencies, the World Bank, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Kenyan government, many public institutions, and she also currently serves on the board for Nestle, the largest food and beverage company in the world. She's won numerous awards. Among them, 2014 Fortune magazine 30 Women's Achievers globally in food and drink. And in 2017, she won the Africa Food Prize, which is one of the most prestigious awards for individuals that have made a huge impact on the continent. From 2003 to 2007, Ruth served as a member of the Kenyan parliament. She was one of 18 women out of 222 parliamentarians. And that is when I had the privilege of meeting her when I worked at Monsanto. She was incredibly knowledgeable about farming and agriculture. And I said, well, you must be on the agriculture committee. And she said, no, I'm on the committee for women and girls empowerment and education. And it was through Ruth that I came to understand that many of the farmers around the world are women, and that improving agriculture is fundamental to their empowerment and wellness, not just food security, but oftentimes whether or not they go to school, whether they get health care, how they are seen and respected within their households and within the community. So Ruth, for decades, has been a bold and humble, tireless advocate for the empowerment of women and girls, for the importance of science and technology, and for the critical role of agriculture to solve some of our greatest challenges. And I'm very honored to invite her here to share some of her story and experiences with us tonight. Ruth.
I take this. Thank you, Natalie. That introduction alone makes me nervous. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Carrington, and your team for having me here, and everyone else. As we were leaving the reception room, I told Chip that this center is magnetic. And I think it's after I met so many people saying they are volunteering, and they have been volunteering for a long time. You know, the spirit of volunteerism. I'm happy to be here. We started discussing this 2 years ago. I didn't know it would materialize with Natalie. Natalie is very special to me because she has actually been to my village and donated 4 cows, which bear her name, the mother's name, your grandmother's name, and your mother-in-law's name. Yes. Yeah, so it all started with Monsanto when I served on the Biotechnology Advisory Council. And I used to talk a lot about what I do in the village. And, you know, the foundation then donated 100 cows. And they arrived in one night. And some were giving birth in the field where they were arriving. Yeah, and so now when people meet me, they say, I want a cow. Yeah. And even the men will tell me, I want a cow. I say, you are not a woman. I give the cow to the women. Yes, yeah. So I better just watch my time. I have 20 minutes now to talk to you. I like to share my story, and I'll start by saying thank God for the internet, because what I do is in a very confined part of Kenya, in the western part, and it's like that is my experimental ground. They are my people. I had done my work everywhere, and then I got a grant to do action research. And I'm a food and nutrition scientist. So you look at the food, what is in it, you eat what is given to you. I said, I want to go back. This idea of Africa being hungry all the time, and then hearing that it's women who are producing food. And I say, how can a continent rely on women only to feed itself, when I'm aware that the women were so busy doing everything else? So I sort of went back to look at what was going on at that time. But even before that, coming to this country, I got a scholarship. There was a scholarship that will be managed between the American government and the African governments. And that year, there were 5 of us from Kenya, and I was the only girl who was coming. And that told me something already. And then I promised my parents that I would go back. And the reason I promised my parents I would go back is that they had lost 6 children. And I had seen my mother mourn her children. And it turned out later, it was just malaria. Don't know for lack of food, it was malaria. And malaria is still killing many children. And it turned out that in our family, we had a streak of malaria, which was drug resistant at that time. And I was also going to go. Actually, up to now, I carry malaria queens wherever I go, because it can attack you anytime. But I told my parents, I'll go back. And so when I finished, with 3 children born in the US, I went back. And I've seen many of my colleagues over time go out, and then they stay there. No issues. I have no issues with them. Each one of us has reasons why we stay where we do. But I told myself that what I've benefited from the US government, the American people, having seen how so extremely generous they were, I would like to know more about Kenya so that when you come, you don't tell me about Kenya and I don't know, but I'm the one leading you to where you should go. So actually many people write to me, Ruth, our daughter is coming, somebody's coming, do you know who is coming? And I say, yes, I know, I'll let you go where you want to go. And I think also going into parliament was that I can get you through security, I can meet you at the airport, yeah? You don't have to bother, Ruth has arrived, and then I whisk you off, and then I bring you back. Yeah, so everything all ties up. But coming to this country then, I studied food and nutritional sciences, and whenever you asked me, I would say, what do you want to do when you go back to Kenya? I said, I want to make sure that Africa no longer has malnourished children. Africa no longer has hunger. Because I was here and you go to a supermarket, to a grocery store, and you spend 10 minutes choosing what to buy. You know, tomatoes? Okay. They are whole tomatoes, they are diced tomatoes, they are spiced, they are what? I said, my goodness, I can't choose. You are truly blessed. I want to remind you, you are truly blessed. But thank God also that you are as generous as you are. You are truly blessed. Because I see hunger. I go to those villages. And as time has gone on, and I became an advocate for women. Why women? In my own community, when I went back, truly, it was the women who were tilling the land with children, some of them not going to school. And I value education. I know it's education which got me where I am, And so I said, no, this is not acceptable. And I would find a woman, you ask her, how old are you? She looks younger. She's younger than me, but she looks older than me. I said, this is not acceptable. The crop looks yellow, nothing doing. So I started to work with very little funding, and really the biggest investment was me there. So the reason why I like the internet is that all this work I've been doing in some little corner of Kenya, nobody would even notice it. I wasn't working for awards, But thank God for the internet. People can Google you and see what you're doing and try to find you and say maybe you deserve an award or maybe you can come and speak at the Danforth Center and so on. Yes, yeah. So I make good use of that internet. But then I became an advocate for the women. But then I realized that yes, that was happening in that part of Kenya. But one time I was in Ethiopia talking the same thing about women doing what, and some young man just started coming to the podium, and I said, I'm in trouble. And that was my first time in Ethiopia. And actually in Ethiopia, the men are on the farm. The men are on the farm with the women. In Mali, where I also go because of the Bolog work, the men say we cannot allow our women to get dirty in the farm. We are the ones in the farm. So Africa, to remind you, is 54 countries. It's not one country. So practices are different everywhere. And so what I've learned is that understand the culture, deal with it as you see it. And I've seen over time, as I worked with the women and on agriculture, how do you feed your family, bringing the science to them, making sure that they use inputs. They were not using fertilizer at all, using inputs, bringing some Monsanto seed, and now Wema, water-efficient maize, which is doing extremely well in Western Kenya. I was on the council at Monsanto when it was being worked on, and I was sure by the time it becomes ready, I'll not still be in this world. I knew I'll be gone, given how long research takes. And then now we also are able to store the maize. It can be stored in hermetic bags. I met them at Purdue when I had gone to speak there. And I said, I want those bags for maize storage. And so now we have completed the cycle. And we have also introduced soybeans for fixing nitrogen in the soil. And now they discovered they wouldn't accept soybeans before. But they say, oh, these soybeans are good for the soil. So now we have them so we can eat them. So now we are teaching how to actually incorporate soybeans in the meals. And I can speak this for myself, but really where I am comfortable because I've seen children are healthier, families are healthier, women are empowered, they are confident, they dress better than me now, their husbands are happy, they are the ones who thank me because I tell them now your women look the way they did when you first courted them to marry them. You know? So I make it like now I'm older, it's a lot easier to interact in the community. I can joke even with the men. I used to have only women attend my events. You know, it's like, this girl, you know, she's been to America. She's bringing these bad ideas to the community. But now they're seeing, no, they come to attend the meetings. They come to attend the meetings, and I challenge them, and they say they want their daughters to be like me, and I say, yes, like me, but I hope you're also taking care of your family and your wife as well. And we have seen a situation where we never had village elders as women, chiefs, women. Now we have them. And while I was in the Kenyan parliament, we worked on a new constitution. A new constitution. Because, as Natalie said, at one time, even with the late Wangari Maathai, the Nobel laureate, many of you have heard of her, we were in that parliament. We were just 18 women only. We couldn't get any bill passed, nothing. But we worked on a new constitution, 2010 constitution. And we passed it. It was very family-friendly, very woman-friendly. So now we have much better representation. But we have had to also appeal to the men to support the women. Otherwise, you actually alienate the men, and then they start to abuse the women. So you have to appeal to the men. So the men now who go looking for qualified women to work in different places, to take up different positions, they say, where are the women? We have to look for them. And Kenya has a lot of very well-educated women. And it needs to be the example for other African countries because we have free primary education, and they want to make secondary up to 12th grade also free. And really, education, as far as I'm concerned, is the key to long life living and really, real empowerment. Yeah. I was very impressed to see Dr. Carrington, the women, okay, they are all younger than myself. The young scientists, the women at lunchtime, very positive in what they do, and even the ones who took me around the facilities. And I really want to encourage you because when I was in high school, my high school was an African girls' high school, and we used to do what you call A levels, you know, just pre-university, and women were not doing math. They didn't believe women could take math, so we never had mathematics. Yeah, imagine in my lifetime, they never thought women could do mathematics. But I was a top mathematician, and I could do it even better than my own teachers. So they decided they would offer mathematics. So one of the things I do when I visit schools is that if you want to be a scientist, you have to do mathematics. If you want to be a doctor, you have to do mathematics. And I really encourage the women. You know, I even go and give incentives to make sure women can also do mathematics, because it gets into you that women can't do math until 1 + 1 does not equal 2. You see? So my support is to say many women who have made it, especially in Kenya, have had male support. It's been a father, it's been a brother, it's been an uncle, it's been someone to just tell you, you can do it. You can do it. And so when we talk about men supporting, we actually make sure that we have to give them incentives, and when they see that in Kenya right now, there's no question as to what job a woman can do and a man can do. But one thing for sure, a man can go for a job interview in Kenya, get the job, and come and tell the family, I'm taking this job. A woman has to negotiate. You have gone for a job interview, who told you to? You didn't tell us, you know? Yeah? Even being a chief in the village, I say, for her to be a chief, she needs the whole family to support her. She needs a community to support her. So getting older has assisted me to actually see my whole community change. And it is then those experiences I bring to the national level, I bring to meetings, and I'm able to impact, you know, especially on the continent. And I've had international job offers, and I've said no. I decided to stay in Africa. I decided to stay in Kenya. And I think some of us need to stay there to tell the story and to also encourage people like you to come. You cannot know Africa until you step on that soil. Remember, it's mother continent. We all came from there. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, we all came from Africa. Yeah, Ethiopia claims it. Kenya claims it. South Africa claims it. Everybody claims where mankind actually started. But I know when I meet friends from US or Europe, the minute you step on that soil, it actually gets into you. It gets into you. You feel it's different. But I also applaud those who are able to come, especially young people who want to explore, you know. In the village, I get some in the village, because it's a different dimension and different interactions, because we were colonized before. So as I grew up, I used to see white people who are missionaries and who are colonizers, me as I grew up. So now, the villagers don't see white people. The kids, when they see you with the chip, with your hair, they'll want to touch it, right? With your skin, they want to touch it. So now you come as a friend and as a partner, and you actually just learn from each other. So that's essentially how I do this work. And in Parliament, while I was there, I was able to bring the biotechnology issue after what I had learned from Monsanto. It's still a difficult area. They link it to GMO, and what is GMO? Tampering with human life, DNA. What are you doing? And our politicians are not ready to understand what it's all about. So it continues to be a big, big challenge. But we don't give up. I'm not one who believes in giving up, but also sticking with the truth and the fact and trying to educate as much as possible. So I welcome you to come. At the same time, through you, I can thank this government of the US and the people. I had my children, 3 of them here, took them back to Africa. I had my twins in Pullman, and I had free babysitting, I had free baby food, I had everything free. Yeah, and I believe that you can do a lot more, by the way, for Africa, you can do a lot more. We have some bad governments and bad governance. Corruption. It's not for lack of money. But each time there's corruption, maybe in America you can have corruption, but the economy won't collapse. It won't collapse. But an African economy, which is much 1/10 what the Californian economy is, once 2 or 3 people are corrupt, they take everything out, everybody suffers. Yeah, so just bad use of resources. But one thing also I've always encouraged is that all these Africans that study here, and then they go back, and I know some universities, like Cornell, they follow their students when they go back. It encourages them to go back. And they follow them with grants, checking up on them. And if you have resources and collaboration, you know that surely once you have been trained in this country, you are not going to be corrupt in Africa. It will haunt you. Yeah, it will haunt you. You have to do the right thing. So I always believe in using resources so that people can see where their money is going. When you are giving, you want to know whether it's making a difference or not. And so the labs I see here, we can never have this quality of labs. Absolutely not. But we make use of the results, like your cassava work. I know Danforth with cassava. Each time I think of Danforth Center, I think of cassava. I think of cassava. And cassava is a big crop. It's a hunger crop. I've known it since I was growing up. We always had to plant it. And now diseases came and almost wiped out the whole crop. And I know the work you are doing here. You are working on teff now, the Ethiopian super grain. There are other good grains, which are good for the environment, the so-called orphan crops for Africa. So the work you do here, international work, I hope you get enough visitors from Africa to appreciate, Jim, what goes on here. And that you need more opportunities for our own scientists from Africa to come and spend enough time to work here. Eventually, they are the ones who advise their governments to adopt the right technologies. Or some of them may become presidents anyway when they are back, So that's the same thing I said to Monsanto when I first went. They took me around their labs. I said, this is where our people need to be. This is where our own scientists need to be, the molecular side of things. We can never have this quality of lab in Africa, even in our universities. But at least we can understand what is going on here, pick it up, and then promote it in Africa. And once you understand, you can see what the synergies are and what the linkages are. So I better just stop there before I go too far. I just want to thank you so much for being here. You are all so amazing, everyone I meet. St. Louis is great. It's not my first time. As I said, I used to come before, but I never stepped here. So I'm happy I'm here finally. And please reach out. You can Google me, you can find me. Thank you. Yes, yeah. Oh, there's water.
Thank you, Ruth. Always fun to hear Ruth be able to talk about so many different things, even in 20 minutes. It was wonderful. I have a question or something I wanted to bring up. One of the things that you've always talked about with me is that you see leadership as a service. And you take it very seriously at any level. And I saw up close when I did visit your village, this NGO she runs, where basically you can donate an impregnated cow, and they usually leave it to the people in the village to decide who should get that cow, who's the most needy and who's ready to take on the responsibility because it's very significant responsibility. And in my case, you and your staff had decided who you wanted to give the cow to for a good reason. I'd like you to tell a little bit about that story of what happened and why you did it.
Yeah, the cow. Actually, the cow is for families who get the grade cow and it works for them. You can't give it to just anybody because it's a lot of work, and some very, very poor families cannot manage that cow. So it is a game changer for them. It's the best way to actually eradicate poverty, give food security and milk to the children as well, and put money in women's pockets. So we actually got this, the Haifa International model. That's what I picked up. And then I started looking for cows. So normally we involve the whole community and we ask them to actually be able to choose who should, the deserving person, but who is able and who should actually get it. So in this case, we were very disappointed because the leader, the woman's group leader, decided that she was going to be the first recipient. Yeah. And then, so I gave them a story. I didn't want to embarrass her, but I just gave the story of how I know my father's group, where they got some things to divide amongst themselves, and there was not enough to go around, and my father decided he would not get it. I was so proud of him. And I said, when you are a leader, you are the last one to receive. It is like a mother in a household. When food is going around, she serves first, everybody. And she might even go hungry. Yeah, she doesn't start with herself. So I use those kinds of examples. Yes, yeah. And then the lady who had now shown good leadership, she actually, I was there now to present her now with one of your cows, anyway. Yes, one of your cows.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was neat because I feel that those are some of the really important lessons for people to see, so it was really great. One of the other things I think probably on people's minds, so you were a real trailblazer to be one of 18 women in a parliament of 222. How did that happen? And what are you most proud of as your achievement while you were in parliament?
I used to say never, never politics. Because people would tell me, Ruth, you know you are going to be a politician one of these days. Because when you advocate for something, you begin to sound like a politician. Yeah. I will talk against hunger. I will be on TV. I will be in the media talking against malnutrition, emaciated children. We should be ashamed of ourselves. It's a scandal. They say, Ruth, you are going to be a politician. I say, never, 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 never. So one time I just got a call that the losing party, opposition, was inviting me to be a nominated member of parliament. Kenya has a parliamentary system where 12 members of the 222 at that time are specially nominated to represent special interests. So it's like I was going to represent women or education or something. Yeah, so the thing I didn't say no, but at least I got in. Yeah, not easy at all, and I took it. I had young people, actually. I had 6 interns in my office. And I asked them, politics is so bad, is this the direction I should go? And each and every one of them, I was asking them singly, there were 3 men and 3 women. They would put their head down, say yes, 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 yes. Yeah. So I got in and I decided to become a student of legislation. And I then got to be shadow minister for education. And I just learned how selfish politicians can be. Because you prepare a statement, you say, we are going to give it to the press. You come and be with me as I give this, because that's what you do for each other. And you are there, the press is there, and all of a sudden there's nobody, you are alone. And I said, I'm shadow minister. I don't need anybody. Then I will issue a statement. And there were many media houses, so I got to be known, on education, talking about education and so on and so forth. And biggest achievement, I think pushing the biosafety legislation virtually singly. It didn't go through then, but the timing was just bad. But at least it led to the biosafety authority being established. So we have the authority established. We just haven't approved people using any BT cotton, BT maize, or anything like that. So it is at least moved forward. And the other one was just to make sure that the Education Act, especially for science, that because it was education, science, and technology, that it's acknowledged, and now we have special support, actually coming from the US, from the World Bank, and the government putting in their own money, just to make sure that science is actually promoted and appreciated, and teachers being given special remuneration for teaching science. Yeah, so that one. The other one is the sexual offenses bill. We had a sexual offenses bill, and it was being promoted by a young lady, being called all kinds of names. They thought it was anti-men. But at that time, we were having children being raped, old women being raped. It was just like a season for it. It was bad, like what I'm hearing going on in India at the moment. And so it took us, all women, to come together and in a bipartisan manner actually take this on. And I would tell this young lady, don't worry, I'm ready to be abused. I'll do it for you. So to get it to pass through Parliament, which is dominated by men, we decided to each take on certain male parliamentarians that we could convince. So I offered to take this real hardcore man, real hardcore. And I took, but he was good in that he used to tell me, I just want my daughter to be like you. I just want my daughter to be like you. So then I went to him and I say, okay, let's assume it's Chip. I say, Chip, do you have a daughter? So this lady is now on the floor, presenting the motion. And I say, Chip, do you have a daughter? Oh, I love my daughter. I say, yeah, I know about daughters and fathers. Oh, I love her. I just want her to be like you. I say, okay. Do you have a mother? Oh, yes. I'm even building something in her name. And I say, yes, I know about mothers and their sons. And what if someone raped, what? He was standing up, I would shoot them, I would do what? And I said, that's what this bill is all about. It's not about men. It's about criminals who do these terrible things. And really, we must pass this bill. In the end, so we all divided ourselves. We had to have a strategy, and it passed through. But thank God that through advocacy, education, and campaigns, that eventually it was mostly the men who thanked us for getting this act through, to have minimum sentence against certain sexual offenses. It's now being revised to make the sentence even stiffer. So in Parliament, it's mostly we women who dealt with family-oriented issues. Yeah, issues affecting people with disability, yeah, people who are marginalized, women, children. Yeah, so we took that on as a huge responsibility.
And I know that in your village, in a lot of the work that you've done, you often talk about the men are a big part of the solution there.
Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the impact that the men have?
Yeah. That when the whole women's movement came up, men were running away. Like the first meeting was in Nairobi in 1985, and the men ran, they left town. because it was in Nairobi. They just left town. And now later, as we talk about gender, they would just say, oh, no, it's just women's thing, you know. But thank God for international movements, but also not wanting to be feminist as such. Yeah, because many of our women have no options. We don't discuss divorce. I mean, where do you go? Yeah, once you are married, where do you go? You don't have a job of your own. And so it was also a learning curve for me in the community. I came from there, but I left quite early to go to boarding school, then to study. And so coming back, I had to understand my own community. But all I know is that a man would be judged by the way the wife looked. It meant you are taking good care of her. Yeah, if your wife looks good, then we respect you as a man. Yeah, but somehow all that had now been lost. There was a lot of drinking around, and I couldn't just talk women only. Initially, yes. Even these cows, they came through the women. The cows came through the women. And then we had to have special sessions for the men. So the men would tell the women, you don't have land here. I don't want to see that cow. Really? So we had to have special sessions for men and tell them, look, this is like a baby coming home. Who goes to the hospital to have the baby? The mother. Who takes care of the baby? Both of you. Who will drink most of the milk? You, the man. So, you know, so now many of them were leaving their menial jobs, sugarcane cutting, what have you. They are now the ones who actually were helping to take care of the cow. And, you know, really unexpected outcomes from this Monsanto gift of the cow. And so whenever I get a gift, I say, the cow, the cow, the cow. It's just been a great, great story. One time I was hoping Hugh Grant will arrive in a helicopter and see what is happening in the village. Yes, yeah. So, so of course, as I've grown older, then you just realize that you need to operate as a family unit, and you need to get the men to understand their role, and you need to encourage them, motivate them somehow. And if they have forgotten, you go to the Bible. Yeah? You go to the Bible. Everybody carries the Bible and goes to church. But for some reason, they forget their family responsibilities. But again, being a parliamentarian helped me, because we've had situations where there is woman abuse, and there is men, drunkard, coming home, and a wife hiding with the children. Or there's a woman widowed, left with children, and the family, the bigger family, wants to chase her away so they can take the land. So I was dealing with all those issues, you know, and but fortunately, the title of honorable in Kenya helped me to deal with those issues at the local level. And when we passed the sexual offenses bill, we had to go to villages to tell them minimum sentence is 10 years in jail. So this issue of you have raped, let's have a goat, let's have some understanding, you know, and finish it off here. That's no longer your case, it's now in the courts. So we had to educate the community. So the men now, I'm happy. They come to my meetings, and they, well, now I'm a grandmother, you know, I'm just like them. So, so we talk the same language. Yeah, we talk the same. I'm like one of the elders. Yeah, so we talk the same language, yeah, yeah. But you learn a lot, you know, as you operate in the community. Mm-hmm.
So some of the folks in the audience are parents, and I think we'd have questions of, you know, especially given the culture, some of the challenges there, what are some of the things that your mother and father did that helped you, or didn't do, that got you where you're at?
Did they? I don't know. They were good. They valued education. My father was a policeman. Yeah, so I got my discipline, I think, from there. Yeah, whenever I came home running to my mother to say something, he would stop me and say, who else was there? who was the witness to what you are saying? So, and then he reached just class 6, but valued education. And remember, I said they lost many children. And then my mom learned how to read her Bible through adult literacy. Yeah, she was so proud she could read her Bible. So she died first in 2004, and my father at her funeral said, without my wife, my children will not be educated. Yeah, I used to send the money, and she used to make sure they go to school. Yes, yeah. So, and I think for him, it was just whenever I came home, let me see your report card. What number were you? That's all. What number were you? I became the son. It was like I was the son. What number were you? I could not afford to be number 2. I had to be number 1 only. Yeah, but then my teacher, my high school teacher, my math teacher, who was his good friend and he's still alive, he's ailing now, told him, you have a very clever child there. She's going to go far. So be ready. You won't keep her for too long. Yeah, so, but he's still alive, but my father is now gone. And so they valued education. They really valued education. And in fact, many of his friends were surprised that as a policeman, he was actually sending children to school, and girls at that. Yeah, so because many policemen in Kenya at that time were not, they couldn't even afford to send children to school, and even now it's difficult for them. Yeah, and another thing I remember in my high school I talked about, I qualified to have a scholarship. I qualified to have a fellowship because he didn't earn much money. So when I came home and I said, the school says I qualify for a scholarship, he said, no, I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay because there's someone else who is more needy than you are. Yeah. So I put a lot of value to how we bring up children, family upbringing, and the kinds of things. We are the children's first teachers. As parents, we're the first teachers. It doesn't always turn out okay. We get disappointed. There's no prescription for parenting. And even preachers' children go haywire. Yeah. Yeah. And you just pray that all will be well. Yeah, you just pray all will be well. And in Africa, of course, before, you will say children are brought up by the village. It's like my father was always looking out for other people's children. But it's no longer the same because people have gone to the towns, the villages are still there, aunties are no longer nearby, and yeah, quite a challenge. And yeah.
So one last question. The folks here generally are supporters of this center and the mission of what they do here. And so you and I have talked before about one of the things that's really important about science and research. It takes a long time, so it's harder to see the impact. But rather than treating the symptoms of the problem, it's really trying to treat the cause. So any last words around the kind of work that's happening here and what you saw, and any suggestions for what folks in the audience can do to try to make an impact?
Well, first of all, I'm happy I didn't come here then. I've been able to come, and I can really appreciate what goes on here, and that I can see a family spirit, family environment, volunteers, people who have taken time to understand what this center is all about, and that it's really part of the role of what America is all about. I don't think the U.S. appreciates what role it plays in the world, you know? Yeah. So when we have bad politics, at least we know there's a big father somewhere, democracy. And when we are hungry, food aid comes from here. When you have the science, you come and share it with us, because we can't do some of this science. When we have issues of global warming, there are years in Africa, in some communities, where there's no harvest for 4 years. We are rain dependent. Even in Kenya, Ethiopia, Norman Borlaug was in Ethiopia, made Ethiopia now so proud, they actually now export their food to Kenya. Yes, Ethiopia. Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time there. Norman Borlaug really inspired me, Dr. Borlaug. Yeah. And he told me, Ruth, took my hand the last time I saw him. I said, Ruth, it took politicians in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh to bring about the Green Revolution. It took political will. A lot of times our leaders don't understand all that. They're busy harvesting for themselves, and they don't care about the flock. So really, what you do here is absolutely critical. I just wish scientists could speak up more. That leadership in scientists, yeah. You speak to the plants, especially here, right? You speak to plants in your laboratory, yeah. But I was very impressed at lunchtime, everybody was in such full praise, Jim, of the collaboration and even between organizations, institutions which are around here. Everybody knows everyone else. You work together. It's a great work environment. But I can see also you reach out internationally, and that you should always make sure if you are working on TEF, visit Ethiopia, right? To see what the TEF means to them. They import it into the US from Ethiopia, actually. The Ethiopians who are here, many of them in Washington, D.C., TEF comes on that plane every day, yeah? And so the work you do here, and many of the African crops, nobody has ever done research on them. What determines our livelihoods? Orange flesh sweet potatoes, just through Harvest Plus. The cassava work you are doing is so critical. Our governments don't know this. Yeah? As scientists, technologists, we have the best God-given brains, but we don't speak. And we have given our governments, our countries, to be run by politicians who don't know anything. Yeah. They are the ones who make the laws, and they are the ones who allocate the money. And in the parliament, whenever we had a motion on research, on higher education, there will be 3 of us in that parliament, in that chamber, 3 of us. If anybody said no quorum, then there will be no debate. And so you take a lot of time just educating them. You have to do advocacy. My fellow academicians who were so upset that I went into parliament, they were so upset. How dare you? How dare you go into politics? They were now coming to me saying, we need to talk to politicians. We need to talk to politicians, And I said, they are just normal people, happy people. That's a good thing about politicians. They are very happy people. So you make them understand what you are doing, and just I used to invite them and talk to our committee on education, and they would say, you mean we have these kinds of scientists in Kenya? You mean this is going on in Kenya? So I would like to really appeal that you need communication skills, you need lobbying skills, you need to get off your benches in the laboratory, You need to reach out. You don't have to run to be a politician, but you need to know how to lobby them, how to reach out to them, because this work otherwise stays in the journals, stays in the labs. It doesn't really help humanity as much as it should. So that's my work to them. And I just want to thank all of you who volunteer here. Come to Africa and volunteer as well. Yeah, come to my village. Yeah, you just change everything. By the way, yeah, we struggle to get resources. We struggle when people ask me, so Ruth, how much investment, in this project? I say, no. So long as I am still able, I am the biggest investment. Because just entering a farmer's house, she has no seats for me to sit on. I ask her, so where do you sit? On the floor? Let's sit on the floor. It just changes her instantly. He said, you mean you came to my house? You are sitting on the floor with me? That alone changes everything. That one can do that with all your degrees and the what and the what. So really, it's taught me it really humbled me to work with people in the community. It's made my journey more spiritual, and it's just made me appreciate and always be grateful for what I have. And this country has so much. A lot you take for granted. A lot you take for granted. Yeah. But you can also learn a lot from us. Because our people will want to give you food even when they don't have it. Yeah, Africans are so generous. Yeah, a bit like you. At least you have something to give. You can give me a cup of coffee. Yeah, but I'll give you food, real food, even when I don't know where my family is going to get food from. So we are just happy people, and I think part of the reason why we are happy. It's a survival thing. Yeah. You have to be happy to survive, right? Yeah. So, but welcome to Mother Continent. And I know, how many of you have been to the continent actually? How many? You see?
Pretty good.
You see? Yeah. So you won't ask me whether I've met someone who is in South Africa or who is in Senegal, right? So you know Africa. Yeah. But you are welcome, or encourage your children to reach out. Yeah, to reach out. It's a game changer. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, wow. Wow.